we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's been almost a year since I've done anything Simpsons related on this channel. I've been doing movies, I've been continuing my Trailer Park Boys retrospective, I even started reviewing Star Trek episodes, but I have been getting a slight hankering to do Simpsons episodes again. And what a better time to get back into it than the Halloween season. Treehouse of Horror videos have been one of the staples of my Halloween video dump, so I figured maybe I'd at least get one out of the way this year. My overall main concern with my Simpsons and Me videos and why I haven't been really doing them is a combined issue concerning slight burnout on the subject, and also the fear of running out of episodes to talk about, and I'm pretty much through like almost every Treehouse of Horror video that I am willing to do a video on. But nevertheless, it's Halloween, I gotta do at least one, and today we're going to visit a Treehouse of Horror episode that to me feels like the end of an era. Season 9 in general is where I would say classic Simpsons ends, and even then it's debatable that Season 8 was the cutoff, but since Season 9 actually has several episodes done by both Weinstein and Oakley, David Merkin, and Mike Reese, prior to Mike Scully actually taking over as showrunner, it is appropriate to at least deem it the very tail end of The Simpsons' peak years. The show itself does show early signs of the Scully-era humor, and it does kind of mark the point in the series where you think they might be running out of ideas. And as a result, the Flanderization of characters starts to kick in. But despite this, Season 9 of The Simpsons is still funny, it still does have solid episodes, it's kind of the transition point. But with that being said, I truly think that Treehouse of Horror 8 is kind of slept on when it comes to Treehouse of Horror episodes. It's not one that ever makes anybody's top 10 lists, it barely had anything in it that gets marketed besides the last segment, and all in all, it feels like kind of, again, much like Season 9 itself, where they were starting to kind of run low on ideas. However, it does have quite a few strong points. I think the overall issue with Treehouse of Horror 9's ability to stand out is that it has very stiff competition from its predecessors. We all know that 3, 4, and 5 are the banger Treehouse of Horror episodes, and then 1 and 2 have a certain style to them that makes them enjoyable, and then 6 and 7 mark a change from horror into a more comedic experience. But what of Treehouse of Horror 8? In all honesty, 8 feels like it dips into that barely based on Halloween territory, as it features a parody of the Omega Man and The Fly, with only Easy Bake Coven being remotely Halloween based. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't something enjoyable about these stories, even if they do drift away from the plot of horror parodies and remakes of Twilight Zone episodes. It also does contain one of my favorite non-graveyard sequence intros, the sequence with the Fox censor. I don't know what's so funny about this, like I kinda hate censorship to a certain degree, and as we all know, Fox was very strict with their censorship in the day, so the idea of a thinly veiled parody of Fox's standards and practices being brutally murdered by the TV rating logo is pretty cheap, but it's an effective gag. It does parody the concept of censorship, but it also does kind of parody the idea of a show pushing its envelope as well, because I really don't think a crack pipe would ever appear in The Simpsons.
I think we can do without the crack pipe.
But nevertheless, the Fox censor gets stabbed and church swears until the TV rating hits 666. I remember watching this episode with commentary, and they were talking about how it was actually a pain to get this by the real Fox censors. They had to change what the hand was using to stab him from a butcher knife into a sword.
Oh, for Pete's sake! Jiminy Christmas! Ah! Darn it.
Now, this sequence might actually be the earliest cognitive memory I have of a Treehouse of Horror episode. It is the first time I'd ever seen something get stabbed to death on a show or a movie. I think this dropped in 1997, I would have been 5 or 6 years old, and I have this very vague memory of barely paying attention to it, and then seeing what was happening. And it didn't traumatize me or anything, but this image has been burned into my brain since childhood. Anytime I see this, I just get kind of taken back to when I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember sitting on my cousin's floor in his TV room and just seeing this whole thing transpire. Being a post Treehouse of Horror 4 Halloween special, we just get right into things with the Omega Man, a parody of the Omega Man, which itself is an adaptation of the book I Am Legend, which many younger viewers may remember as the Will Smith movie. It starts off kind of silly. All of this nuclear apocalypse that the family is about to face is the result of Mayor Quimby making fun of the friend.
I stand by my ethnic slur. Do your worst, you filthy, pretentious savages!
Oh, so he's a modern-day Republican. What starts off as a basic Homer's lazy plot turns into an exploration of a post-apocalyptic Springfield. I do like that we get a rare Herman appearance. Like, after that whole Pulp Fiction parody, he really didn't show up a lot. You can watch the Real Jim's video on the character. But it is pretty funny how he gets, like, nuked, and then Homer just does not really seem to care or notice.
You call that prime rib? Yeah.
The nuke drop itself is pretty solid. They do this whole thing where, like, the French shoot a missile and you actually kind of get to follow the POV of the missile as it lands on Springfield, and it hits comic book guy, like, right in the face.
But Aquaman, you cannot marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds. Oh, I've wasted my life.
But, as per the DVD and actually one of the Fox promos, there was something cut from this sequence that was pretty graphic for the era of The Simpsons that we're in. There's a whole scene where Krusty comes out on his cell phone and he gets this interference, and then, like, the flash happens and he screams and you just see his skin get blown off. I'm guessing this was cut because it was considered a little too graphic, because, yeah, it is jarring when you've never seen it before. Now, when Homer realizes the gravity of the situation, we get a classic meme, but then we also get something that's kind of sad when you think about it. Homer decides to go see a movie, and it's a parody of what a standard Chris Farley movie would be.
Oh, Spade. Why did you put Farley in charge of the bees?
I can't find anything indicating who did Chris Farley's voice, but if I had to guess, it was likely Hank Azaria, and while all he does is scream, it's a pretty spot-on sounding Farley impression. What makes this kind of sad in hindsight is that Chris Farley died less than 2 months after this episode aired. Now, people who are familiar with I Am Legend might think that the story features zombie-like creatures, but this is based on the Charlton Heston movie. In the book, the mutants were more like vampires. In the Charlton Heston movie, the mutants aren't really vampires or zombies, they're just albinos. They're mutated by a biological warfare agent, and they're like strictly an anti-technology cult. So they're more, I guess, realistic in a sense, but not really. So that's what the Springfieldian mutants are based on in this parody. The Omega Man is strictly a parody of the 1971 adaptation of I Am Legend. It doesn't even parody the Vincent Price one. All the Springfieldians have been turned into homicidal albino mutants who shun modern technology and eat people's skin.
Come on, we just want to eat your skin.
Go to hell, Cookie!
There's another scene here that always got me. Like, Homer's in his high-speed chase getting chased by the mutants, and he sees the Winter Brothers on tour there. For some reason, they're just, like, in Springfield after it got nuked. And of course, he mistakes them for the mutants.
Die, you jug-faced goons!
Now, every time somebody mentions Edgar Winter, this is the first thing that comes to mind. Now, the story kind of just rolls to a halt. It's a heater segment. It's the first segment of a Treehouse of Horror episode. It's fast-paced, gets to the point, and it hooks the audience. We get a kind of happy ending where Homer finds out that his family didn't die in the nuclear blast, and we get a fake out that the mutants and the humans are going to live in harmony, but then Marge has a change of character and blows them all away. And they all live happily ever after. The Omega Man is a solid parody of what it's parodying. It's an abridged version of the Heston film with some comedy thrown in, and I guess as a heater segment it's not bad, but the looming feeling of Treehouse of Horror being not so much a horror affair is felt here pretty good. It's funny, the coloring for the post-apocalyptic Springfield looks good, and it has an overall good art style and good flow with some funny jokes, but it leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of a Halloween story.
Lieutenant, this is Ensign Kang reporting a cigar-shaped object moving at tremendous speed.
Sure, Kang. I'm writing it all down.
This is something I'm going to get into in a later video, but you can really feel the show has completely tilted to be Homer-centric over Bart-centric. They don't even really give Bart any, like, lines in this segment that I can, like, pull off the top of my head. And even the next segment, which I'm going to get to shortly, which is a Bart segment, has a lot of Homer in it. Trust me, I'm working on this whole, like, when Homer took over from Bart type video. It should be out at some point. Nevertheless, though, it is a solid entry. It's not one of the greatest, but it's far from being bad. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. Slightly above average with some memorable moments.
You want me? Come and get me!
Get up!
The second story is Fly vs. Fly, which is a parody of The Fly. I'm a pretty big fan of The Fly, the Cronenberg version, and this doesn't parody that really at all. The teleporter they use is based more or less off of the Cronenberg version, design-wise, but the episode itself plays more off of the original 1950s Fly, in which a teleporter mishap causes a man's head to swap with a fly, and the fly's head to swap onto his body. It's weird. They do this with Bart. We get some solid Frink here, just him being a weird scientist dude who introduces the teleporter into the plot, and there we go. And oddly enough, the most humorous part of this is just Homer messing around with the teleporter.
This mountain of stairs used to make bedtime a grueling chore, but not anymore, baby. Good night, losers.
It's simple but effective humor. To this day, the cat ear medicine bit is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Oh man, that's good.
One thing I didn't catch on to until recently, when Homer tries to piss into the teleporter and he gets stopped, like, by Marge before he goes on his rant explaining how he won't let Bart use the thing, his fist goes through the teleporter and hits Lisa. And, you know, you really think about that. He was about to pee through that thing, and Lisa was in the bathroom. Homer was about to R. Kelly his own kid through the teleporter. Let that sink in. Once the actual Fly portion hits, like Bart trying to become a superhero and accidentally creating Cat Dog a year before Cat Dog was released, I find the episode just kinda folds. The concept just isn't very entertaining or funny. The sugar part got me to laugh, and the climax in which Bart gets his body back with the help of Lisa is entertaining enough, but it feels more like they were just going through the motions while writing this. They were like, fuck, we need a middle segment, just do something based on the fly. It's an issue where the concept starts off well enough, but then kinda just falters. They obviously wanted to do some sort of Bart segment because they just had a Homer segment, but I think Homer would have suited like the fly thing a little bit better. I don't know. They needed to give Bart something to do in this episode. Because like I said, he has almost no lines in the Omega Man, and he definitely doesn't do anything in the next story. All in all, while the early portions with the teleporter are genuinely funny, the segment falls off when it gets to the actual meat of it, and that hurts my overall opinion. It feels as if in the writer's room, they were like coming up with all these really good gags with Homer and the teleporter, and then like near fucking crunch time, they were like, fuck, we did like nothing for the Bart portion. This is supposed to be a Bart story. They really don't put in a lot of like parody moments of the actual source material. There's like two off the top of my head. They do this gene splicing thing from the remake, and then of course they have Bart with the spider in a reference to the original. Where's the A material? Where's Bart throwing up acid on Nelson or something? It seems like they got really lazy with this one. I'd have to grade this a 4.5 out of 10. It's below average. It has a few funny moments keeping it afloat, but it's not particularly great. May actually be the lowest score I've given to a Treehouse of Horror segment yet, and trust me, if I get into the later ones, that will be broken. It's nothing to write home about, and most of that score is carried by the cat ear medicine bit and anything with Homer and the teleporter.
Help me! Sucker!
Now, of course, we move on to the only horror or Halloween-related bit in this episode, which is Easy Bake Coven. It's a mostly original story with some references to the Crucible, and it's also based on the Salem witch hunt era of American history. It opens up pretty funny with a witch burning, like, they make a witch burning funny, and that's mostly because of how satisfied Skinner is with his mother being burned.
See you in hell, Seymour!
Goodbye, Mother.
It's just something about the way Harry Shearer did that line that just completely kills me. And in all honesty, like going through the rewatch of this Easy Bake Coven story might actually be the sleeper hit of Treehouse of Horror 8. Now, going back to a loose parody of the Crucible does seem like they're kind of reaching deep into the bag. I guess they kind of ran out of things that they could parody or whatever. But honestly, it fucking works. And they do play the Salem witch trial stuff like completely straight. Like Marge is falsely persecuted for it. It leaves you guessing like what's gonna happen here. And it's a good build-up.
This witch hunt is turning into a circus.
She's the witch. Yeah, she's the witch.
I was just about
not to accuse her.
Now, there are a few misconceptions about the Salem witch trials. For one, there were no actual burnings at Salem. That's more so in relation to European incidents of a similar nature. The witches at Salem were executed via different means. However, to refer to them as witches is mainly, just based on the accusations, because we all know there were no actual witches at the Salem witch trials. It was basically a bunch of crazy-ass fucking Puritans using it to control women through religious fear. It's a good thing that we've progressed past the era where religion dictated how people were treated. ...
You sit on the broom and we shove you off the cliff.
What?
Well, hear me out. If you're innocent, you will fall to an honorable Christian death. If, however, you are the bride of Satan, you will surely fly your broom to safety. At that point, you will report back here for torture and beheading.
Anyway, and honestly, when it actually does reveal that Marge is a witch, it's completely out of nowhere. Like, they don't telegraph it at all. And that's all rounded up by having Patty and Selma also be witches. I think what I like about this story is that we get to see some characters who don't really get a lot of screen time in Treehouse of Horror episodes get screen time. Lovejoy playing the Salem-era Reverend and giving Marge that, eulogy that is just, probably what happened back in the day where they'd kill someone and then they'd be like, oh, she's not a witch, may she rest in peace. It's like, you people did this. It's great. It's dark, but it's great. And the reveal of Marge as a witch getting her revenge is also really great. There's a load of dark humor both before and after Marge's reveal. I also rather enjoy the actual plan the witches have once Marge gets revealed. Even though the runtime kind of chokes the whole concept, it is a good concept and they make the most of the very little amount of time they have to work with. And I do like how at the end of it, Maud is the one who saves the day. Although it's kind of canceled out because she's kind of the one who gave the witches the idea for their revenge.
I've heard that witches come to your house and take your children away to eat them.
Eat their children. Jeez, we were just gonna swipe their shoes. But a good idea is a good idea.
But when they actually go to eat the Flanders kids, Maud manages to convince them to take gingerbread children instead, and it's a cute little conclusion where Marge, Patty, and Selma go door to door trick-or-treating for the first time, which turns this into the origin of Halloween.
What did you get? Candied apple. I got a caramel
It's a cute thing that's completely thrown off by this rather subtle line they say. I didn't even catch this until I got a little older.
Scaring people into giving us treats is fun. We should do this every year. I just wish we hadn't filled up on all those kids before we got to the Flanders.
So, in a weird twist, the story that was based off of something more obscure and was definitely more originally driven actually benefits this kind of dynamic. Turns out to be the best one in the episode. Omega Man has its moments, Fly vs. Fly is pretty mid outside of a few jokes, but Easy Bake Coven, being a Marge segment, which is a rarity in Treehouse of Horror episodes, actually is pretty good. It works on so many levels. Up to this point, the only Marge spotlight Treehouse of Horror segment we ever got was maybe Bad Dream House, which that could be a slight stretch to call it a Marge segment because while she is the voice of reason and gets a lot of screen time, she is forced to share the spotlight with the whole family. And then we have King Homer and The Shinning, which, let's be real, while she's the main protagonist of those, she does split the screen time again with Homer. People say Lisa's the most underrated character who doesn't get what she deserves, and nah, I gotta say it's Marge. She does not get the ball often, but during peak Simpsons, 9 out of 10 times when Marge does get the ball, she runs with it, and you get some pretty solid episodes out of it. And Easy Bake Coven being mostly a Marge story, with Marge being the main Simpsons family member that is focused on, alongside Patty and Selma in supporting roles, does make this a breath of fresh air. Especially when typically Treehouse of Horror segments focus on Bart and Homer with the Odd Lisa segment. Not only that, it's funny, both with its lines and its visual gags, and it feels like a nice actual Halloween story. Something that would become more and more scarce as the Treehouse of Horror episodes went on. And the image of Marge and Patty as Selma as witches has become one of the more popular marketing images associated with the Treehouse of Horror series. I would go ahead and grade it an 8 out of 10. I could possibly go a little higher, but the one thing working against it is the runtime, which I really should stop factoring in the runtime to these, because I know every Treehouse of Horror segment is going to be constrained by its runtime. But Omega Man and Fly vs. Fly come out at about 7 minutes and change. Easy Bake Coven only gets about 6.5 minutes. That doesn't seem like a big differential, but it's noticeable. Putting aside that minor flaw, it's the right amount of funny with the right amount of mean-spirited. Perfect for a Treehouse of Horror segment.
Doesn't the Bible say, "Judge not, lest ye be judged"?
The Bible says a lot of things. Shove her!
As a whole, Treehouse of Horror 8 is a little slept on, but in a way I do kind of see why it's slept on. You have two not very horror, not very Halloween segments, and then one segment that is just a Halloween segment, but not particularly based on anything identifiable. It has less allure than even the previous year's Halloween special, which had an original story and a weird sci-fi story, but at least managed to be topical and satirize that year's presidential election. I think if you presented a list of Treehouse of Horror episodes and said pick 2 to watch, nobody would ever pick 8, but it does have some genuinely great elements of humor to it, even if the horror elements are pretty downplayed compared to what made the series great. What it does lack in horror, it certainly makes up for in mean-spirited humor, apocalyptic imagery, and a decent presentation overall. If I had to rate Treehouse of Horror 8, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Like, not bad for a Scully era episode, it's solid, but it's kind of just incomparable to what came before it. It feels like the writers were kind of just getting burned on the whole concept at this point, and it's like they were just doing it because they had to. Despite the fact that it's kind of an indicator that the best years of Treehouse of Horror are over, it's an episode that always does make a rewatch when I do my yearly Treehouse of Horror rewatch. I mean, I can go pretty deep into it before I get sick of it. There's a lot more than I can say for the rest of The Simpsons. Oddly enough, I think next year's special is vastly superior. But you're gonna have to wait till next year to hear me talk about that one. Unless, of course, I decide to just like throw in a bonus one like I did last year, but we'll see how I feel. So that was my obligatory Treehouse of Horror Simpsons and Me review. Like, I know it's been a little while, I kind of stayed away from it. Like, I did a lot of Simpsons content, you can see it on this playlist here. When I kind of stick to something for too long, it's gonna get to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to stop. But don't worry, it does eventually get to a point where I'd need to start up again. So who knows, maybe the new year will have me completely bring back The Simpsons and Me as a regular fixture on this channel. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on Treehouse of Horror 8? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, share me with your friends, and I will see you next time.
Impossible. We burned all the gophers.
Not all of them.
Ow, 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 ow.